Welcome back, everybody. It is June 1st of 2024, and this is episode 66 of What is on My Desk. Welcome back, everybody. We're here for another one of my monthly What is on My Desk workbench updates, and we'll swing over and we'll take a quick look at the progress on the kits, and there's significant progress. Even I am surprised at how much I got done. I know sometimes it's a lot more than I expect, sometimes a lot less than I expect. I always temper my expectations when I'm building, but again, very, very happy with what I got done. And yeah, I don't have any new products or anything to go into right now.
Editor Sean here. It turns out I do have some products we will look at, which we will see just before we jump over to the models.
It'll be a shorter video, just a quick look at the progress. And yeah, so let's get swung over the desk. And as always, my name is Sean, and this is Sean's Aviation. And just before we jump in, I want to say thank you for everyone who is out there watching. If you haven't yet and you do enjoy what you watch, down below, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. All of that will help you know when more stuff comes out and help the channel grow a little bit more. So I'm going to wrap it up there. I'm not going to go into too much about all of this. So again, let's hop over, take a look at the progress on my 4 kits. So I have 3 new books to show you here. It is one of those complete spur of the moment purchases that I usually make on this kind of stuff. And I also paid very little for them. So I have these 3 books here. We'll go through briefly all of them in a second here, but backstory was I was out at the War Museum just the other day, Canada War Museum here in Ottawa, and filming some content for some upcoming videos. Keep your eyes out for those. Anyways, they had a used book sale as part of the Friends of the War Museum, and I popped my head in, and there's oh my God, a lot of books. If you're ever in the Ottawa area, I don't know if it runs every day the museum's open or not, but if you're a book guy or a book person, specifically military, check out that book sale. It is the mini library. There has to be about 12 or 15 shelves just packed full of books, all for sale. And I think they're like $7 a book. Apologies for drinking coffee. Yeah, so you can't go wrong with those kind of purchases. So, I mean, there was a lot that I really wanted to buy, but at the end of the day, I ended up just buying the 3. 2 of them are from Squadron Signal, and the other one is a generic book from Specialty Press. So we'll start with this one here. This is Squadron Signal 6028, the Super Fortress, the Boeing B-29. Now, if you figure this was $7.95 back in the day and I got it for $7, shows you how relatively inexpensive these were. I love the artwork, by the way. This plane is sitting so far off the ground. If you've ever seen a B-29 in person, this sits significantly lower. It's like the landing gear is coming out of the bottom of the fuselage instead of the engine nacelle. But anyways, I digress. It's just, you can kind of see here on this side where the wheels, the top of the wheel should be in line or higher than the bottom of the fuselage, and over here it's just way too high. But anyways, whatever. This book was published in 1980, so it's, you know, almost 50 years old now. In amazing shape considered it's 1980. It looks brand new, but it's dated in terms of when it was published, but it has a lot of really good information in here. Being that it was older, there was a lot of more first-hand knowledge out there, and this book was written with a lot of that stuff involved, and there's just a ton of pictures, I should say. The book is just full of pictures. Pictures upside down, which is hilarious, but yeah, gives you a good view of the incendiaries packed in it. But anyways, it starts off talking about the history of the B-29, kind of in prototypes coming out, flying in China and Burma and over the hump, and then it goes into the aircraft that were based on Tinian and all that kind of stuff. There's some details through the inside, some of the turrets and tail turret details, some damage of crashed ones, and then there's some really interesting pictures of the camera setups in the photography variant of the 29, which I've never seen before, the F-13. And then it goes through, and there's just tons of artwork, some of the details on the different radome installations, a few really nice color palettes here of them. And then again, there's just mission symbols, color photography, nose arts. It goes into detail here on the 509th, the atomic bomb unit. More color photos, including some Korean War stuff, some more really good color pictures showing and drawings showing you some of the color schemes. Really good reference if you're looking to build models, or even for a decal maker to come through and make some of these. It is a really, really good book. Like the nose art detailing alone is worth the price. And then it goes into some of the specialty ones, some of this experimental stuff, the weather ones, into the post-war refuelers. Again, a bunch of just nose arts. And then it finishes up talking about the Russian one, and then the, as of 1980, all of the existing 29s, which I'd have to do research compared to what's out there today. I don't think much has changed. I know, when this book was written, Fertile Myrtle was still flying, owned by, according to this, by the American Air Museum in Oakland, California, which is now defunct. This was now owned by, if memory serves, Kermit Weeks, and is in storage at his facility in Florida. But I know, for example, Doc is now flying, and I don't think was included in here. It talks about the aircraft that was in storage at the New England Air Museum, which is now complete. So I'd have to compare this against most, but there hasn't been a significant, other than Doc, I don't think there's been any real new quote-unquote B-17s that have come around. So that's an interesting piece. The next one I picked up is another Squadron Signal book. This is 6074. This particular one was published in 1998. So a little bit newer, and it specifically covers the history of the first 300 B-17Fs built. And it, again, is full of pictures, references, some really nice... I'll find some of the really nice pictures here. There's, for example, some of the camo splotching. There's some color plates drawn up of various aircraft. Again, there's a really good example of the camo splotching. Here again, some really, really nice reference material for anybody who might be looking for that for building, especially with the new model coming out, or that came out, the new Hong Kong models. Again, here's a bunch more. There's a specific picture I'm trying to find, and I know it's in here because I looked through this book page by page the other day. There's a really good shot of, I believe, Knockout Dropper. Here we go. Look at that. A beautiful shot of Knockout Dropper right from the top. And this is one of the aircraft I plan to build. So things like the way that the exhaust staining and oil staining bleeds across the top, and how it seems to only be on the one side of the engine cowling. I'm not sure why, but it's a really good reference for, you can see all the different camo splotching, the fading of the control surfaces. It's a really good reference. So this is a very helpful picture that and again, a picture I've never seen. This is the rest of it sitting in Oklahoma City in 1946, just before it was scrapped. So things like that make this book worth the entire $7 that I spent on it. Like, look at that little Aubrey. Look at the camo on that one. There's a picture you don't see too often of a 17. It looks almost like it's British camouflage with all the green splotches on it. So just a really, really good reference. I'm really happy that I found this for this price. And again, the way the book is written, and you go through, you see the aircraft are like labeled for, and they're broken down by groups. So it starts off, it isn't in numerical order. It is in some senses, because you got 24, 520, 521, right? 22, then it jumps to 28, 31. But then I'm sure if you came over here and this was all the aircraft that are in the Pacific, if you jumped across to North Africa, right, where I said 24522, 24, so now in the 300s, 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 400s, you might be able to find the sequential number that's missing, because it would have existed, it just didn't end up over here. So what did I say it was? 522. So we're looking for 523, I guess. 477. That jumps to 542. So it's not there. It would have gone to Europe by the looks of it. Anyways, I'm just doing this for my own interest, because I haven't really... 4 5 2 2 4 5 2 3 2 4 5 5 2 3. There we go. So see, 2 4 5 1 7. Then over here you get 518, 519, 520, 521, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, and then over here we jump to 33 because the other ones. So you can see how the aircraft were coming off the assembly line, and they're not in, the whole book isn't all 300 just in order. It talks about the aircraft that were based in the Pacific, then it talks about the aircraft that were based in North Africa and Italy in Operation Torch, then it talks about the aircraft that ended up going to Europe. So you could, from this, gather an entire aircraft in numerical history, but when you're reading through it, it jumps around a little bit. But again, really good reference. You can see there's a drawing made off of that picture I showed you earlier. Anyways, I just, again, really, really good reference. I'm going to be using this book probably a lot while I'm building my B-17s. And then finally, this one, which is, like I said, is not from Squadron Signal. This is part of a specialty press production. And again, this was $16.95 brand new and was published in, so it looks like it's the same company that does the Warbird Tech aircraft series, which is actually a really good series. This was published in 2006, so it's not old at all, really. But it talks about buzz numbers. So it talks about the history of buzz numbers and kind of how they got to them. And then when you end up reading through, it talks about the post-war, specifically this style buzz number, where it's 2 digits and 3 numbers, which is the first letter, F, tells you it's a fighter. The second letter, S, off of this chart tells you what aircraft type it was. Then the last 3 digits are the last 3 digits of its code. Its radio code, its tail code. But this is a really interesting book because A, it shows a bunch of different pictures of different aircraft and various locations of where the buzz numbers could be installed, as well as the breakdowns for all of the different aircraft. So if you happen to have a picture of just a code, you could use this book to figure out what aircraft type it was. But it's a really good reference just in terms of aircraft types and where the codes were put. So if you know you want to do like a post-war, P-38 or you can see here there's one that carried it, and here's a P-47 and a P-63. So it gives you lots of really cool references and ability to come up with if you want to just make up your own scheme, but that's somewhat accurate. So anyways, really cool. You read through, it talks a lot about the aircraft themselves, and it talks about each aircraft type and subvariant, and it just goes and goes and goes, and it's really, really, really well done, I have to say. And then there's reproductions of all of the different technical orders that the Air Force put out with regards to buzz numbers and how they need to be used and where they should be painted and how they should be painted, and colors and sizes and all that kind of stuff. Really, and here we go. For example, aircraft, you can see all the different sub aircraft. So like, for example, a K is a tanker, C transports, you get the KC-10, the KC-130, right? So you get all these really cool references that show where the Air Force is coming from with all of this stuff. And then I love the fact that here it shows you how to draw, it's like there's a technical order that shows you how to draw the U.S. national insignia, which a lot of people get wrong. So it's really neat to have that. You can go into Photoshop or whatever, your own program, and you could draw the stencil for that, and it's all based off of the radius of the circle, which is all based off just the size of the star. So whatever size star you make, you can build your whole roundel off of that, which is a really nice way of doing it. So again, for $5, I mean, if I'm going to use this a lot, I don't know. I think it's a really cool reference to have. All of these 3 books cost me $15, and I help support the War Museum, so it was a worthy purchase in my eyes. So that's pretty much it. I don't have any new kits or anything. I haven't gone out and bought anything. So I'm not going to go into any more talking about that. Let's just jump right over and we will take a look at the progress of the kits. Okay, folks, well, here we are at the desk, and I have, as I mentioned, quite a bit of progress done on these kits. I had, well, 3 weeks off from work back at the beginning of the month, so I had quite a bit of time to kind of just really sit down and plug away at these kits and get stuff done. And yeah, so I'll show you the progress. We'll start with the B17, which is also a YB40. So like I said, surprisingly decent amount of progress. I have it sitting on the stand, on the adjustable model stand, simply because the tail of the ball turret mount hangs down and I don't want to break that off. So until I get a stand finalized, it's going to sit on this. But as you can see, I've got the fuselage assembled. All the clear bits are installed. The nose is installed. A little bit of cleanup I got to do on that nose still, especially here at the bottom. I might do a little bit of puttying on that just to clean that up a little bit. We'll see. The YB40 conversion insert looks really good. Little bit of putty needed here still. And also I have to clean up this seam here where the upper cockpit piece fits on. So when that gets done, that'll get done. I've also got the tail turret piece glued on, and it's going to need quite a bit of cleanup as well. So it'll need, I'll have to put some putty on that as well. So just a little bit of puttying left to do on that. And then the wings are assembled. And I need to do quite a bit of work on these as well. There's some really bad seams in here. I knew there would be in on the sides of the cowlings here, so I'll have to put a little bit of putty on those. A little bit of sanding, a little bit more putty, a little bit here as well on the leading edge. Just enough to hide that lip. Trailing edges aren't that bad. Need a bit of glue on this one, but anyways, so both wings are in pretty much the same position, and it's a big plane. You forget how big these are until you start working on it on the desk and you realize the size. So anyways, a little bit more putty. Like I said, cockpit area around here, a little bit around the nose. I still got to mask off the wheel well, tail wheel area, mask off those wheel wells on the wings as long as putty is there, and then I can hit them all with primer. And then it's, again, after that, just clean up seams, and then we're pretty much ready for paint. I'm not going to do any rescribing on this one. I'm just going to hit it with paint, the neutral gray bottom and the olive drab on the top, and then I'm going to play with some colors, weather some areas a little bit. The tail is going to get a slightly, so the vertical stabilizer is going to get some. The fabric control surfaces are going to be weathered slightly different, and then I'll have to come up with some markings. Like I said, I'm going to be doing some vinyl masks on some of these, so I'm going to have to get those done up for the registrations on the side. Tail markings, I'm going to use leftover decals. There's a couple of little ones on the nose I'm going to try to do on the Cricket and mask and paint by hand. Yeah, and then I'm just going to give it, I want to give it a lot of weathering. I want it to look really faded and whatnot. So it's coming along. I'm happy with it. Back to the grind with work, so I don't have quite as much time. So I'm just slowly going to be poking away at that over the next little while. But we'll see. Moving on to the Kate. It's basically assembled. I've cleaned up some of the seams here where the cockpit's going to go, and it doesn't look too bad. And then I've cleaned up the seams back here. I'm happy with those. These wing roots, I'll use some Mr. Surfacer to fill those in, so I don't sand away a lot of this detail. Wing folds are in. I've done a little bit of Mr. Surfacer on these as well. It needs just a little bit more to clean that up. And I got the tiniest amount of putty back here in this wing to body seam on the belly. And then this is the forward part of the fuselage where the cowl attaches to. So that's going to need to be glued on. I'll clean that seam up a little bit as well later. I'm not too worried about that right now. I just want to get everything else in place first, and then I can get that glued on, get that seam cleaned up. And then other than that, it starts putting some clear pieces on. The tail, the horizontal stabilizers, and this is ready for paint. And the outer wings are also almost there. I've got the wing folds glued in there. I still got quite a bit of cleanup on here to do. I haven't done any Mr. Surfacer around the edges, and I still have to drill out the holes. I did some puttying on the leading edges, though. Other than that, a bit of putty, and then these are ready for paint as well. So the Kate is pretty much at the same state as the B17 is. Just a tiny amount of kind of some putty, some sanding, some primer, and then just checking for seams. And the Hurricane is coming along. This is the commission build I'm doing for one of the pilots who flies this aircraft today. So I'm working on it as well. Again, progress. So the wing, the fuselages aren't joined together yet, but the cockpit's all been done, weathered, cleaned up, looks really good, assembled. The engine I didn't weather at all. It's just a blank. It's got to be in there for the fuselage to attach, as well as add the forward piece to the wheel well, and it needs something for the propeller to fit to, so I needed that in place. But it's just a placeholder. The only thing I still have to do, the seat belts broke off at one point, and I glued them back on, and there's a bunch of super glue residue. So I'm going to have to come through here and retouch up those seat belts with the dark green, and make them look a little bit more cleaner versus that really faded look that they currently are. And then other than that, I've started sanding some seams. I won't know too much more until I get a coat of primer on it. It's got a there's a little bit here I think needs some putty, possibly a bit here. It's hard to say down in here because of the fabric indentations and stuff. It's hard to see, but once I get a coat of primer on that, and then I'll be able to know more. Same with these wings. I've got the gun panels glued in. I can feel the lips. I'm not too worried about it though, because these panels on the real thing have a little bit of off, you know, aren't perfect. I do want to put a bit of Mr. Surfacer in here just to clean up these little seams, so that'll fill in. The leading edge seemed to go in okay. Again, there's a few spots I think I'm afraid to putty this because of the number of rivets and stuff on it. So if I can get it to look close enough, I know he will be happy with it, so I'm not terribly worried. The big thing is going to be getting the paint scheme accurate. I still got to glue the flaps on and then mask off the wheel wells. I'm going to try to use the gear doors. I haven't even checked this yet. I'm hopeful that I can mask. Nope, I cannot, because it's a completely different shape because the way the gear doors open. Okay, so I'm going to have to mask this off with some masking tape and Kleenex the way I normally do. And then I can hit this with some paint. It's gonna be a complicated paint scheme. The top is green and brown. The bottom, one wing is black and the other one is white. And I'll have to do some research at the actual aircraft to make sure. I can't remember if it's black half of the fuselage or if the fuselage is white underneath and only the wing is black. There's some variations that the RAF did, and I got to confirm how the airworthy one that I'm building has been painted, and then I can go on with that. So this still has a little bit to go. Like I said, my plan was to get this one done by September. I'm pretty sure I can make that timeline at this point. I'm about the halfway point, a little less than halfway on that, but it's going to start coming together pretty quick once I get things going together. And the leading edges need some cleanup still. But again, until I get a coat of primer on it, really get a look on it, it's hard to know. And a good example of that is this, the Lancaster Lincoln conversion, which I have here. Haven't done as much on this one because it's pretty much ready for paint. I've been cleaning up along here the Bombay when I glued these on. So I've got this is probably the second coat of putty I've done on the Bombay, and I think I've primed and cleaned up this fuselage. I don't even want to count how many times. Just to keep, every time you clean it up and prime it, you end up coming back and finding something else that needs to be done. There's still a little bit I got to do Mr. Surfacer in here, and I want to redo part of this strip along the side because it kind of fades out here, and I got to find a way to fix that, and I'm not entirely sure how I'm going to do that yet. I think I'm just going to replace the whole thing with another thin piece of plastic card, and it might be slightly over exaggerated in places, but it'll still make it look what I want it to look like, and it'll hide a lot of this insert when that piece continues across. After that, I got to do some scribing, and it's been a while since I've done scribing, and I bought a new scriber, which I'm excited to try, but I don't know how well it's going to work, so I'm going to have to get that sorted at some point. But I think after this last coat of putty gets cleaned up, it should be ready to go for paint. This will be the same top colors as that Hurricane, which is going to make life easy. And then the wings, Same thing, I gave them a coat of primer and it looks decent enough that I'm happy with it. This seam is good, this seam is good. I still have to rescribe the flaps a little bit and rescribe the ailerons, and then I'm gonna do a little bit of scribing, just enough to say it looks like something's going on. I don't wanna go too crazy with it. But a little bit more putty I put in here on some of these seams, just clean those up, and then it's pretty much ready for paint. So the plan is to paint the Hurricane the same time I paint this. Or vice versa, paint this the same time I paint the Hurricane. So it's slowly coming along. I mean, I shouldn't say this is slowly coming along. Those have been going really fast because I've just been plugging along on these things for the past couple of weeks. You know, sitting down here 2-3 hours a day every day for 3 weeks, you can really knock some progress on the kits. So anyways, that's where we are. The next big steps, like I said, now I'm in the other than the Hurricane, kind of gluing that wing together, which is really the next step I have to do. Everything's in that kind of seam cleaning, sanding, puttying stage that kind of is a little bit time consuming and draining. But once I start getting some primer coats down, it'll start to make it feel like I'm moving to that next level and keep moving on. So I'm getting excited. I'm getting hopeful to see this done. Yeah, like I said, I did not expect to get as far ahead as I did, but it'd be cool to kind of get these to the finishing stages and then poke away at them over the summer around everything else, and yeah, getting out to air shows and whatnot. So I'm gonna wrap it up here. I'm not gonna make this one too long. So let's wrap this up, and hopefully by the time we come back next month, the next What's on My Desk update, we'll actually get to see some primer and potentially paint on some of these kits. So on that note, we'll wrap it up. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.